Hello, Nick. Welcome back to the Calvin Crypto video. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we're back with another banger PulseChain video, giving you guys the latest and greatest of crypto news. And right in front of you, look at this. What a beautiful way to start your week with Bitcoin currently at price discovery at its all-time high of $120,000 per Bitcoin. Ethereum, on the other hand, the new Bitcoin, we're going to talk about this in this video for a lot of reasons. So watch the whole video through for that latest alpha. Ethereum is at $3,000. We're going to cover kind of the latest macroeconomic metrics, factors that you need to know if you want to be a global macro investor, which really helps with timing especially when you try to time the euphoric phase, or at least identifying when the euphoric phase is nearing, or having your own top signals. It's really important to understand these concepts. So just keep watching my videos. I'm going to slowly start feeding you guys lessons here and there. I know I mainly talk about altcoins such as PulseChain, which is my favorite place to be. It's the best bet that happens only once out of 4 years. So 1 out of 4 years altcoins pump, whilst Bitcoin 3 out of 4 years it gradually goes up. But of course we know sort of the unwritten rule in crypto where diminishing returns applies to a coin or a token as it goes from bull to bull. This naturally happens as Bitcoin becomes mainstream, where 9 out of 10 people in crypto are holding Bitcoin, or at least know about Bitcoin, or at least have held Bitcoin before. And we can see the same thing with Ethereum, but it's not as slow as Bitcoin yet, purely due to the fact that Bitcoin has a way larger market cap. I think it's at 2 point something trillion, which of course means it will require way more capital for it to do that movement that it used to do. Like, we're just not going to expect Bitcoin to do 100x. We're not going to expect Ethereum to do 100x anymore, even though Ethereum is slightly more volatile. This is why a lot of people say Ethereum is the leverage of Bitcoin, which also is the same thing that can be said. Bitcoin is the leverage of the S&P 500. But as we go from bull to bull, which by the way, Bitcoin is going through its fourth bull run, Ethereum is going through its third bull run. So you can kind of understand how, if you think about the S curve of adoption with how, disruptive tech kind of happens, it usually ends with that maturation or that plateau where it reaches 100% of market saturation. This is why we're seeing Bitcoin's narrative moving towards being just a great store of value that's a hedge against inflation, but it's just not able to give you that generational wealth anymore, especially for the 95 person that has only a 10,000 to invest. Making a 2x on your 10,000 every 4 years is not going to cut it and make you quit that 9 to 5 job, unless you're a business, a hedge fund, an investment fund, or just someone with large upfront capital. It just won't cut it. This is why we look at other things that are a leverage of Bitcoin. This is a leverage of Ethereum, and this is why all roads lead to PulseChain. So if you are new here, I do urge you to go learn and study about PulseChain, because it's going through its first bull run. It is a cycle 1 narrative fork of Ethereum. It's a layer 1 solution, not a layer 2, and of course it's EVM compatible. All these attributes play for its longevity. It is here to stay. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been making a lot of videos about PulseChain since 2023. 2024 has been an amazing year full of gains. Are you going to miss the gains that we're about to make in 2025, where we're going to see the first prime time altcoin season wave, and we're going to hopefully end it with a higher wave in early 2026? Again, the countdown has already started. We have less than a year, with the highest chances for you to take advantage of this bull run, to take advantage of this upcoming quantitative easing. We're going to talk more about this in a second. All you need to do to start with is to go to pulsechain.com, and here you'll see all the useful links, and it tells you the steps. And of course, I have made videos on this, so you can search up my name, so Calvin Crypto, how to invest in PulseChain, or just how to, and then it will show all my how-to videos that you'll find relevant for yourself. So the most important part here now, unless you haven't really traded within Ethereum or BNB or Solana, you need to wrap your head around the concept of having a non-custodial or a self-custodial wallet, such as Internet Money, MetaMask, or Brave Wallet, or even OKX. For example, the wallet for Solana is called Phantom, which you can have a web browser for. You can also install the app, and that will give you your passphrase that you need to keep very safe, etc. And this is where you own your own wallet. This is one thing that we like about entering the DeFi world, is where you have ownership of your coins, because of course you shouldn't really trust a centralized exchange with your money. It's the same concept of, leaving your car parked at a petrol station. You just won't do that, but you'll still visit a petrol station every week because you need to use its services because they're useful and convenient. So just some quick advice there is just use centralized exchanges for the services that they provide, and just beware of that counterparty risk. We've seen stories that happen with Celsius, with FTX, and of course with how Coinbase, for example, is very notorious for, indefinitely freezing accounts, and whilst having the worst customer service. If you do know how to use Solana, or if you do know how to use Ethereum or have used it before, then you want to go to step 2 here, where it will show you either how you can go from a fiat, so again using your dollar, your pounds, or your euros, straight to Pulse using services like 0x Coast or Ramp Now, or if you want to bridge from a blockchain to a blockchain, so turn your Ethereum to Pulse, you can use the native PulseChain bridge. This is what I use almost on a weekly basis. There's Gibbs Finance, there's Liberty Swap. Big shout out to them. We're going to see an update from them in a second. And there's a bunch of other options that just collapses even more. And by the way, the fact that it's on pulsechain.com, I would actually give it a stamp of approval that it's been vetted out, it's been trusted. And again, the best source is of course using the native one, but I do like Liberty Swap. You can also give it a test, start by trying to bridge in, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, $50, and you can see bridge fee. And sometimes when you go to a larger number, the percentage is actually, it gives you a better deal. Anyways, you played around with that. I understand that. Of course, one of the things is the first step is usually the hardest step. We've all gone through this before. So if you do have any questions, you can join my Telegram link description. Go say hi. It's 1,500 members over there. I'm there every single day, multiple times a day. So if you have any questions, come reach out to me. Now, if you do need extra support, you can email me below. We can, I don't know, schedule a call if you want. I'm really happy. It's literally a pleasure onboarding you guys to PulseChain. And I just want to say a quick reminder before we continue with the program that you can get my course link in the description for absolutely free using the code PDAI, PDAI. This will cover almost everything that you need to know, whether if you're new to crypto or this is your second cycle. You need to know this, especially if you're planning or have over $1,000 in your crypto portfolio. You need to understand the different attack vectors in this landscape. In a DeFi world, it can be a dangerous space, not just in terms of social engineering, also in terms of malware, also in terms of theft, also in terms of loss. How you can cover and mitigate against those risks. Watch the course. It's a 6 quick video part series. Thank me later. And by the way, I just want to say a quick shout out to you guys, the people who are leaving reviews. So you don't even need to hear it from me. Click in the link description, give it a read. You can hear it from other people who've watched this. So yeah, thank you very much. It means a lot to me. And also I do have another course here. This is if you're very new to crypto, if you want to understand, technical analysis, the significance of that, what is liquidity again, and the different types of liquidity, the difference between Bitcoin, Ethereum 1.0, Ethereum 2.0, and much more. How does the proof of work system actually, the consensus mechanism actually work? What the difference between an NFT and an ERC20 token and an inscription? A bunch more I cover there. I think it's also a 6 or 7 video part series, very short. I think around an hour of content. So yeah, guys, appreciate you very much. Let's continue with the program. Kind of going back into this, as we said, Bitcoin is currently at its all-time high. This is the Bitcoin exchange liquidation map. I did cover this a week ago, and if you remember, it was like around 5 billion if we reached 120,000. Guess what? And I've said this before, it acts kind of like a price magnet. We're at the $120,000 now, which is crazy. And I think I would say the next price magnet does seem to be around the 124,000, where it will result in 2.17 billion worth of short leverage liquidations. Next up, looking at the Bitcoin spot ETF, you can see the past couple of days have actually been very crazy, injecting 1 billion in a day, and then the day before that was 1.18 billion just from the Bitcoin ETFs, by the way. And matter of fact, it's been like that for the past few weeks. Again, this is a sign that smart money is making its moves silently, because yes, they still don't represent the majority, but this is what you need to pay attention to. Now, speaking about smart money, I want to show you guys this chart. I haven't showed it before, and it shows the Bitcoin long-term holders supply versus the price chart itself. And you can clearly notice that during the times where there is less long-term long-term holders within Bitcoin, the price usually tops and then starts falling off. And with that, I just want to say the past few days we've slowly started rising up, reaching local all-time highs. This is great. This shows that more people have more conviction for Bitcoin. This shows that sellers are being exhausted within Bitcoin. So dare I say that this is actually just the beginning. Look at the fear and greed index. We are currently at 70, not even at the extreme greed. So price has actually a lot of room to grow. Of course, I'm not saying that we're only going to be heading up in a straight line non-stop. There is going to be corrections. There is going to be some pullbacks, which is very natural, very organic for charts. This is how they move. It's kind of like that wave going back to the Elliott wave theory, which is really great. Again, it's it does that whole redistribution from the weak hand to the strong-handed people, the people that actually deserve it, the believers. So do remember this. It's a believers only cycle. Having an investor mindset versus a trader mindset will get you very, very far. One last thing before we move away from Bitcoin here, I just wanted to show the current holding for Michael Saylor's micro strategy, currently holding 72.33 billion or 600,000 Bitcoin in leverage long positions. Now, of course, this is very, very bullish. He's buying. He is continuously DCing into Bitcoin. You can see his average price is 71,000 and currently he is 68% up on his investment. Again, you can see here today that he bought $500 million worth of Bitcoin, and 2 weeks ago another $500 million, and then another 2 weeks ago $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Absolutely crazy. But do you know what's even crazier? Remember PulseChain, that blockchain that I talked about, the altcoin season, the fact that it's going through its first bull run, right? The first bull run is where the highest growth potential usually happens. Yeah, let's talk about that for a quick second here. If you didn't know, again, this goes back to information asymmetry, what literally differentiates and separates the winners from the losers. The 95% of people that usually react very late, that usually wait for green candles to happen to then jump on something rather than following information and being there early when other people are not there yet. What differentiates the winners from the losers is information. So knowing things like this can be the difference, can be the deciding factor that you made it big this bull run. That happens every 4 years. The leverage of Ethereum, the leverage of Bitcoin, the leverage of the S&P 500, and of course the leverage of the money printer, ladies and gentlemen. PulseChain is the number 3 top Ethereum holding, but it gets even crazier than this. This right here, the number right here that you see, 166,000 worth 500 million, is in spot position, guys. Unlike Michael's strategy, which, by the way, big shout out to him, of course, clearly has conviction, incredible story as well. This is in long leverage positions. But on the other hand, with PulseChain, this is a spot position. It's called the PulseChain Sacrifice Wallet. Again, that's why it's called SAC here, because there was 2 sacrifice phases that basically happened at the end of the previous bull run, where we had a sacrifice phase for PulseChain, which is the blockchain, and then there was another one for PulseX, which was the native DEX, and there were also a sacrifice for freedom of speech for PulseChain and freedom of movement and assembly for PulseX, which I also personally sacrificed for. And yeah, this is what the wallet is holding right now. So again, because of the fact that it's in a spot position, guess what? Time is not a factor to worry about. Okay, this makes a whole nother meaning for PulseChain being a true leverage of Ethereum, because we're literally holding Ethereum. PulseChain is the micro strategy of Ethereum, if you get the analogy. It's absolutely crazy. And I quickly want to show you guys the ETHBTC ratio, currently at 0.025, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video. Hopefully we'll continue to recover and reach back to its all-time highs, which was around 0.08. I am, again, very aspirational, but if we get it to 0.1 BTC ETHBTC ratio, that effectively means that if Bitcoin reaches $200,000, Ethereum as an effect will be at $20,000. Now, you know what? Even if we have that expectation, and if ETHBTC ratio is at 0.05 and Bitcoin reaches $200,000, that would be worth, Ethereum would be worth $10,000, which is, by the way, a huge win. $10,000 is a huge win. That's actually kind of one of my top signal or euphoria territories. So keep that in mind. You want to have a list of top signals and then give them different weightings. You can come up with your own system, etc., etc. Maybe even create some alerts and stuff like that. So play around with that. It's very important to identify euphoric phases, because if you're going to try to identify, oh, when should I take profits, you're going to listen to the crowds. No, everyone's going to be screaming, oh yeah, the next stop for Bitcoin is 500,000 when we're at 200K. No, that's a big red flag. And remember, bull ones die on euphoria. So I'll leave it at that. And now fast forward a few videos, we're now revisiting the ETHBTC price chart. You can see that we finally broken past that resistance at the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement. And again, yeah, this was the golden zone, which is a very important support level that we need to maintain. We did break down before that, but quickly recovered. And then now we're finally broke past that resistance, because remember, we tested it once, and the more you test a resistance level, the weaker it gets. And hopefully, because looking at the volume profile, you can see that this is a low volume zone. So this is where price really doesn't like to stay around there. So it's either gonna retest and go back down to these levels, which are highly unlikely, because we're at price discovery. Bitcoin is at new all-time highs. S&P 500 is at new all-time highs. You're going to see in a second what I'm going to talk about with the quantitative tightening. So all I'm trying to say, we're most likely going to reach the next high volume zone, which is why I put this magnet right here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the price hovering around the 3.5K level, which is again really good for us, because this effect will trickle down on altcoins, even though in real time it won't reflect to your favorite altcoins, because usually there is a delay. So for example, looking at the Sol ETH, you can see it is technically down at 0.5%, and even Pulsechain today is not the greenest of days. Now there's also technically another reason why today is a red day for Pulsechain, which I'm going to talk about in my next video. But all you need to take here is that there's usually a delay. And now moving on to the next chart here, which is the US Central Bank balance sheet. This is a very important chart to keep an eye on if you care about the macroeconomics. Now I'll quickly describe what this means and why this is good for us. But I'll quickly scroll down here and read the description. It says the central bank balance sheet represents the total assets held by a central bank. In our case, it's the US one. It reflects the scale of monetary policy actions, including holdings like government securities, etc. So again, this is their balance sheet, and you can see since we peaked in 2022, which weirdly aligns with the end of the bull run. Since we peaked in 2022, we've slowly, gradually decreased. That means the balance sheet, the US Central Federal Reserve Bank, have been selling off their assets back into the market. This kind of indicates that the past few years we've been in the quantitative tightening, which means the Federal Reserve hasn't been really stimulating the economy. But what I wanted to also point out is that it seems like the rate of decreasing is slowing down itself, which i.e., all I'm trying to say here is that we're seeing a stoppage to the quantitative tightening, and what follows is, of course, the beginning of quantitative easing, i.e., starting to see that balance sheet starting to head up, which is exactly what we've seen in that 2020 area, which again weirdly aligns with Bitcoin's halving, which also weirdly aligns with the general beginning of the crypto bull run as well. But yeah, you can see here the balance sheet has been rapidly increasing. The Federal Reserve has been buying and adding to their balance sheet. And again, how does this help? Effectively, if they keep on buying, it reduces the interest rates, which makes it really attractive for creditors to take on more debt. And basically, if it means for someone that they can take more debt, that's money that they don't really have, money they owe in the future, but money they can buy with now. Okay, now obviously this is not really good. Unfortunately, this is what stimulates markets, encourages people, households, or even companies to invest, spend, hire more people, upskill more people, take on more risks, which obviously comes with increasing prices, increasing inflation, people's salaries increasing, to even more productivity. The manufacturing industry is providing more goods and services. Yeah, all I'm trying to say that it is a win-win if we see the balance sheet starting to go up again, because of course as they buy more, they're actually injecting more money, as we've seen with the M2 money supply increasing. To summarize, as we see the Federal Reserve increasing the balance sheet by buying up, things like loans, government securities, it is injecting liquidity in the market, increasing things like the global M2 money supply that I've been covering a lot in my videos. Again, global M2 is kind of like a subset of the M1 and M2, and the fact that it's global is measuring, 80 economies, including central banks, shadow banks, and much, much more, even households and manufacturing industries. So yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The white line is the global M2 supply versus the Bitcoin price, but this has a 75-day offset. Some people put it on 115 or even longer periods. I like to keep it on the shorter side because I want to catch trends very, very soon. And yeah, you can see that by kind of aligning it with Bitcoin, it does seem that Bitcoin has a trail all the way up to 200 and $1,000, ladies and gentlemen. This is a chart that updates on a daily, so we're seeing the M2 money supply only increasing. This is really, really great for us, and hopefully we start to see the beginning of the quantitative easing for a lot more reasons. We've seen even here that the US inflation index has dropped to under 2%, which was the Federal Reserve's target. So we're not only at the 2%, we're actually under it. So the longer we stay down here, it actually gives the Federal Reserve more ammo to increase the inflation rates. So yeah, they have been very stubborn in reducing the interest rates because they don't really want to step in unless things are really bad, i.e. there's recession fears. But yeah, we're going to see, a lot of people are predicting that we're going to see the interest rates. A lot of people are actually predicting that the interest rates will reduce by 0.25% in the July FOMC meeting, which I believe is around the 29th to 30th of July, so end of this month. If the July CPI, so core producers index, comes below 2.3, which again here they're saying, I believe this is the monthly that they're talking about, which if it goes below 2.3, which means it's below expectations, which kind of is a precursor or a warning sign that the labor market is weakening. So we need stimulation. Kind of goes back to that whole thing where I'm talking about, with CPI or even stuff like the core CPI. If then a manufacturing industry is struggling, this is not good. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to take this chance to thank the people who've been commenting, and of course the YouTube members who have access to my members exclusive videos. I'm not going to say what they are, you just have to find out. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in and choosing to support my small channel. So yeah, here's the highlighted comments from Patterson. Says 3 years early would be 2026, which exactly aligns with when we're going to see the highest second prime time altcoin season wave. Is that when the DeFi season happens, or is it going to happen in the first wave? I really don't know. But yeah, 2026 is what will mark the top of Bitcoin, what will mark the top of altcoins. You don't want to miss it. Perfectly aligns with everything. Literally everything. By the way, here he's referring to the quote that I said in my previous video where I said it's better to be 3 years early in a project than 3 months late. Here's another comment from Ahmed. Says, my friend, I have a question. When the bull run comes and we are making profits on PulseChain, where we can exchange these profits while none of the centralized exchanges listed PulseChain. I'm wondering, if none listed it, what will be the solution? And that's exactly what I mentioned at the beginning of this video. This is why you have PulseChain.com. It lists all the bridges that you might want. So for example, if you want to go straight from Pulse to fiat, that's where you go. Is 0x Coast or ramp now. If you want to bridge to Ethereum, again, go to the native PulseChain bridge. If you want to go to Tron, you can do all bridge, and I even use stuff like Change Now. Guys, there's endless highways that are taking us into and out of PulseChain that's available. It is literally a city with a great foundation. We're building the highways. I'm telling you, by the time centralized exchanges list PulseChain, it's going to be too late. The retail FOMO will be here. The barrier for entry is going to be low enough. Okay, it's no longer going to be an early opportunity to be in PulseChain. Okay, we're going to refer to you guys right here, the viewers that are watching right now. You guys are going to be part of the history, the OGs. Oh yeah, we knew about PulseChain before it was listed in centralized exchange. They're going to be like, whoa, bro, how did you know? Where'd you find your alpha? Yeah, you're going to be one of them. So again, if you're excited, give this video a like, comment down below. It does help boost this video in the YouTube algorithm, which by the way, can push my video to someone who has never seen PulseChain before, or someone who is very new to crypto. So I'm doing my part of the community about making these videos. Are you doing yours? I have another comment here from Naho. Says, how are people supposed to trust PDAI after the manipulation? I have one answer for you, my friend. How did people trust Bitcoin when the owner left his project in 1 or 2 years and never came back ever again? Never warned people even when his website, bitcoin.org, got hacked. Never warned people when the first and only use case for Bitcoin was literally to fund drug users. When literally one of the main ways to buy Bitcoin was from a centralized exchange called Mt. Gox that was extremely... When one of the main exchanges to buy Bitcoin was from a centralized exchange, where one of the main ways to buy Bitcoin was from a centralized exchange that had so many breaches. The guy sold it off to another owner who was extremely oblivious and almost careless. Guys, they had to go bankrupt. It was a company based in Japan, right? $500 million at that time lost. People who trusted their money in an exchange lost their money. Bitcoin was effectively a scam to them. But thankfully they did receive it back, but it took literally 2 decades. Finally, in July of 2024, 9 billion was distributed back to the people who lost their money. So now you're telling me, how are we going to trust PDAI just because the founder of the blockchain called it stupid? The same founder who talked about the risk diode where he says, if I wanted to warn you against scams, I'm just not going to talk about those projects. Because I know the psychology of people. If I talk about something, people will be attracted to it, whether I'm saying something negative or positive. But guess what? He then follows and makes 33 tweets in like a span of a month. But yeah, let me tell you right now, my friend, that PDAI couldn't be any safer. That mint vulnerability from the Vietnamese hacker, a lot of people actually believed that he was a Vietnamese hacker. This was all theater. It's all orchestrated. And even Richard Hart's words, he said the PDAI cancer is dead. Not the cancer PDAI, he's saying the PDAI cancer is dead. The ESM function, the MakerDAO system is off. There is no minting. As a matter of fact, we've seen a lot of clues from a MakerDAO replacement. We've seen Better Bank that's coming, which is a Piave fork. We've seen the significance of Spark. Why did Richard Hart wait to launch PulseChain, which, by the way, a lot of people were waiting and pressuring and be like, hey, we've been in testnet for far too long. Can you just launch PulseChain? But he waited until Spark Protocol, which is again another fork of Piave, to launch. And then he took a snapshot of Ethereum, literally within 48 hours. And then another 48 hours, he publicly announces the launch of PulseChain. And you got to ask yourself, what is with this whole timing? Remember, PDAI is a snapshot of the legacy version of MakerDAO before they rebranded to Sky. Now in Ethereum, they're decommissioning DAI and they're moving towards USDS, which is effectively the new stable coin. That actually has freeze functions. And Richard Hart has talked about this countless times in live streams. He likes DAI, one of his only favorite stablecoins, because it's algorithmically backed. It doesn't require bank accounts. It's a state of the art. It uses a decentralized autonomous organization, which I'm so excited to see. What do we have ahead of us? So all you need to know right now is that there's no mint. So uncertainties is reduced for sure, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions. But yeah, anyways, that's it for now, because of course there's a lot of other theories I'm going to cover in a separate video, but that's my answer to you. Now, finally, but not least, a comment here from Saint Wolf Vision says, thank you, Cad. Excellent video. Thank you very much, sir. And of course, big shout out to you and the live streams that you make. But yeah, guys, listen, we've reached the end of this video. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. Great things are ahead of us. There's multiple ways you can take advantage of this bull run. There's multiple ways. I'm so excited for the future. Remember, it's less than a year. Your highest chances to change your life is in your hands. It is no longer a question of confidence within the crypto industry. It is a question about confidence in you to take the most advantage in crypto. Are you going to seize that opportunity and become a believer? Because of course, to win, you have to be part of a cult. Because you can't spell culture without cults. Anyways, guys, we're going to end the video there. Big shout out to the man above. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Trust in the process, trust in God. Take care.